Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Brother Hush, and welcome to another edition of the PHIner Life Show. Listen, I gotta bring the big guns. Y'all know Brother Hush. You know, I did a little bit of civil affairs in the U.S. Army. I did a little bit of transportation, but my heart, my boom, boom, boom heart is public affairs, and it's all about telling the story. So I pretty much had to bring the big guns. I know you see that beautiful polo gear. You don't know. I'm not gonna sing the song because when you put the song, Terrence, on like other social media platforms, they'd be like, "You do not have the licensing right to say the song." But everybody, let's welcome to the stage Terrence Hayes. Everybody, and now listen. If y'all don't know who Terrence is, okay, Terrence, currently you work for like one of the largest U.S. agencies in America. You know, I mean, Department of Veteran Affairs is pretty up there. All right. But before you got to the VA, you started a little military career, right? A little military career, you know?
Just a little one.
What branch? Let's play.
Hey, it's the
Name
only
that
branch that
branch.
matters. The only branch that matters is the United
Ooh,
States
now
Army.
Terrence, you want to be starting something? What branch? Come on, say it
U.S.
with me.
Army, baby, through and through.
Now listen, now half of my viewers, they were like, I'm not watching this. Listen, Devil Dogs. Devil Dogs, you might want to hear this. All right. Navy, you might want to hear this. Okay. Coast Guard, especially, y'all want to hear this. And Air Force and Space Force, you might want to listen to Mr. Terrence Hayes because he's about to drop it like it's hot. All right. Now listen, Terrence, we're gonna go from Army career. You know, you had some little jobs in between. And now you are the press secretary for Department of Veteran Affairs. So every journey begins with a story. Terrence, how did you join the military? What possessed you? Was it a dare? Were you playing like an arcade game and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna go join the army. Like, what possessed you to join the military?
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thing, to be quite honest with you. I actually went to a high school. It was a college preparatory school, and I had never seen a recruiter in my life. The recruiters were not allowed on the campus. I didn't know what an ASVAB was, any of that kind of stuff. And I actually had a band scholarship to go to Florida A&M or Bethune-Cookman. And I'm a Floridian from Jacksonville, Florida. And I was a little nervous to, because I was going to choose FAM, but I was a little nervous because every summer we would go to Tallahassee and march on those hills and go to camp. And man, you talk about some hard work in the summertime. And so I was like, you know what, maybe I'm just not ready for the college experience yet. Definitely probably wasn't ready to go to be part of the Marching 100. And I was a percussionist. And I was like, you know what, let me see about trying something a little bit different than my peers. Crazy thing is that both of my parents had served in the military, in the Army as well. And but it was before I was born. So they really didn't talk much about it. So one day I just said, you know what, I'm gonna do something different. It's the easiest way to get out of Florida, easiest way to see the world, do some, you know, some crazy things. And I'll call up a recruiter and see what they're offering. And that's what I did. Unfortunately, I couldn't like just sign and join. I was still 17 when I graduated. So I had to bring my mom into the picture and my dad. And initially they weren't too happy about that decision, but I think ultimately it worked out for the best.
Now you know, there's a little bit of you done take the ASVAB, and we know that public affairs, you need to have a high GT. You need to have a little high GT if you want to read, write, you know, do all the funky cool stuff. I'm gonna ask you this question.
Mhm.
Did you score high enough first time on the ASVAB to hit that public fair? I'm gonna tell you right now, it took me 2 years, dog. Took me 2 years. That ASVAB was like pow. It was like a UFC fight, and they were like, "You're not smart enough for public affairs. You want to take this other MOS?" And then
Yeah,
your first
man.
time go.
First time go. I'll say this. I think the ASVAB, I put it like this. I thought that I scored lower on the ASVAB than I did the SAT, and I scored pretty high on the SAT. So I think that ASVAB was just, you know, one of those tests, another test. But I was a little concerned about it because I hadn't studied. I didn't know what it was. I just took it. The recruiter said, "Hey, it's similar to the SAT." So I was like, "Cool, whatever." I had just taken that and excelled at that. But I scored pretty decently.
So so now you join the military. Um, Real quick, just run through your career.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, highlights, what'd you do? Where'd you
yeah,
go? Who'd you meet? Everybody knows your name. You
yeah.
got some battle buddies probably watching this, Terrence, right now. So they're gonna
Without
feel
question.
a little hurt if you don't call out some folks that probably mentored you along the way.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Long military career, did the mandatory minimum, 20 years in one day. Joined in August of 1996, retired in August of 2016. Traveled to several different places, brother. Started out at Fort Hood, Texas. Uh, that was a great place to start my career at. Learned a lot about Army Public Affairs. I was Army Public Affairs my entire career. Uh, did time in Honduras, did time in Alaska, did time at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, did time at Fort Gordon, Georgia, Fort Meade, where I taught at the NCO Academy, Fort Lewis, Washington, where I was briefly there because the majority of the time I was in Iraq. And then I came back to this area and was fortunate enough to kind of call my career a day at the wonderful Pentagon on the Joint Staff working for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So was able to travel the world, meet a lot of great people, network in the process. I have some great friends who I still connect with to this day, both in uniform and outside of uniform. And it's all about the mentorship, man. I mean, the mentors that I had along the way helped me to develop into the person I am, the man I am, the husband I am, the son I am, the friend that I am, and ultimately now in the position that I am today, the press secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. So I'm very thankful for the village that helped mold me and guide me along the way, because without them, who knows where this punk kid from Jacksonville, Florida would be.
Now you know I'm gonna ask about Iraq.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Listen, I did Afghanistan,
yeah,
Joint Sustainment Command, Expeditionary Alpha South.
yeah.
Shout out to all my folk by the poop pond. You ever been
Hey,
to Kandahar
I
with the poop
visited
pond?
Afghanistan here and there when I was with the chairman. So I traveled for 4.5 years, was in and out of all those countries. So hey, I know a little
You
bit
know
about
how it is.
Afghanistan.
Oh, you went to Kabul and everything. You probably went to Bagram. You went to the little
Kandahar.
yeah, man. Everybody knows when you go to Kandahar and you've got the square and
Yep.
everything that they got a
Yep.
soccer field. I don't know why they put a soccer field in the square, but anyway. So listen, Iraq, give me, what was your experience like as a public affairs
Yeah.
a soldier in Iraq? And if you can share with me, one or two stories or pieces
Mhm.
that help mold how you developed,
Yeah.
or you started to develop as a storyteller, as a public
Yeah.
affairs soldier.
Yeah. I'll start it off before I even got to Iraq, man. I was at Fort Gordon, Georgia, NSA, Georgia, and literally had been there for a year, and just got my top secret clearance, and was doing great things down in that area. It was close to home, loved it, and what? I always wanted to experience what it would be like to take soldiers into combat, man. And so I had the opportunity to volunteer to go to Fort Lewis and be the NCOIC of the Public Affairs Detachment there. And it gave me the opportunity to train up 7 soldiers uh, with remarkable public affairs skills and soldiering skills, and take them over to Iraq for what we thought was a 12-month tour, which ended up into a 15-month tour. And so again, man, it was just that the uniqueness behind just volunteering and wanting to, serve my country and go over there and kind of see the world for myself and see how things work for myself. So got there in December of 2006. And to be quite honest with you, it was probably one of the toughest times over there because especially the first like 3 or 4 months over there, quite a few folks were getting killed. We're talking about like between 6 and 8 a day on average. So it was very, very just a tough time for everybody involved. I remember knowing that I was in a combat zone when I think it was like my 3rd month, and I was going to church there on the base there, and all of us were very close knit family and stuff. And one day, one of the deacons just didn't show up, and he was always there. And again, this is 3 months, and you're like, you expect people to be there all the time. And for some reason, that person wasn't there. And come to find out that that gentleman, along with 7 other individuals, were on a helicopter that unfortunately was shot down. And now he and those individuals lie and rest at Arlington National Cemetery. And so that's when I knew for certain that, you know, we were in a combat zone, man. And I would talk to my soldiers on a daily basis just to ensure that their mental stability was good, that their, you know, home life was good. And that they, you know, obviously had the skill set to execute the job, but I wanted to ensure that them as people were good to go each and every single day. So on the base, man, we were responsible for all of the internal communications, as well as anytime the media came on board, you know, media flying in from wherever, from US or from other countries, you know, we would escort those media in various units or, you know, across the landscape of the country there. And it was a very interesting time. My soldiers performed expertly. A lot of them have since departed the Army and are doing amazing things in their civilian careers. And I think it's because of, like I said, just the expertise that they brought to the table, man, when we were in Iraq. And again, I think that that gave me an opportunity just to kind of have some character building for myself. It really taught me to really be a leader and hone those leadership skills and those characteristics that you need. And I try to instill those every day that I'm doing my present job, man, because it's all about taking care of the people. And I learned so much about that on the ground in Iraq.
Beautiful. Listen, man, you know, being in public affairs, you really, I don't think a lot of people understand that. Well, service members, people might understand, but service members in particular, we have to take on the personality of whoever we're covering.
Right.
If you are out there with some 11 Bravo, some infantry, oh, you definitely gonna put that beautiful camera kit in your bag, but you gonna go full battle rattle as well.
Oh, no doubt.
You know, how did that experience from Iraq help you to adapt to your you know, your jobs that would prelude you to the position you're in? Because, you know, you worked at Office Chief of Public Affairs, OCPA, which if people don't know, that's the Pentagon extension of public affairs. That's the highest you could pretty much go until you get to the Pentagon and the Joint Chiefs, you know. And then we're going to get into it. You are also the one in charge of VFW messaging, public affairs, and then you go to the VA. I mean, all of that has to stem from that combat experience of taking on other personalities and understanding somebody's story from the get-go and trying to be a chameleon. You know, what are some tips, you know, that you can impart to those who aspire to be, you know, storytellers? And this is for all the mass communication specialists, the public affairs personnel that are serving within the military. This is some teaching tools, you know, each one teach one type stuff, you know, and junior officers as well. Gotta throw that out there. You know, gotta take care of the officers as well.
Exactly.
What were some of the things that helped you to become a stronger storyteller and connect with whoever you were attached to?
Yeah, I think the number one item, and I learned this from a mentor, it was rule number one in public affairs: know thy audience. And, you know, when you know your audience, you know, what audience you're engaging with, you're able to paint a picture that relates to them. You know, so for example, you know, if I, you know, go on a, you know, say for instance, I go on CNN, you know, and I'm talking about the Department of Veterans Affairs, I need to go on there with my A+ game, and I have to be able to talk all of the top level stuff that they're going to hit me with, so that the everyday American can understand what's going on at the department. I can't get so far into the weeds that they just don't understand what's going on in some of the programs and resources that we have available for veterans. I have to break it down to where everybody can kind of understand that, because I have to understand my audience. You know, if I'm amongst friends and I'm chatting about various different things, I have to know my audience. I can't talk so deep or so, you know, above their head that they don't understand what I'm talking about. So the key is to know your audience, know who you're communicating to, but also know your subject. So the subject that you're covering, you know, it's pertinent that you know who that individual is, you know, not just as a professional, but you need to know who that individual is as a human being. the secretary and I, obviously I work as the press secretary for the Department of Veterans Affairs. In order for me to be able to do my job expertly, I have to know my boss, not just from a professional standpoint. I got to know him from a personal standpoint also, because if I'm charged to speak on his behalf and on behalf of the organization, I have to know who that individual is. I have to know what their thought process is. I have to understand how they think. I have to know how they will react if certain things come into play. Because again, I'm speaking on behalf of that person, not on behalf of Terrence Hayes. I'm speaking on behalf of the department and on behalf of the secretary. So again, it's about knowing your audience, knowing the subject. And I think when you do those two things, it helps you become that better storyteller, that better public affairs, public relations individual, that better communicator. And it just makes you that much more dangerous when you're out there engaging your publics.
So now I got to follow up to that. I got to follow up. Okay. How do you make people care? I think that is the hardest part. Currently I serve as the international media director for Mu Beta Phi, right here, Mu Beta Phi Military Fraternity Incorporated. And I have to make people care. People do not understand a lick sometimes about, when you say fraternities and sororities, people might be thinking school days, stomp the yard. No, it's not all about that. It's all about giving back to your fellow man and continuing to serve your community. But you have to make people care.
Exactly.
What are 3 things that you always incorporate within the messaging or the putting together the messaging to make people care? What are you asking yourself? What have you learned along the way? How do you make people care about what you're doing?
Hey, it's just what I said, man. When it comes to your audience, what matters to your audience? For example, veterans. The veteran is at the heart of everything we do at the Department of Veterans Affairs. So if I'm communicating, that's the very first question I ask myself. How does this impact the veteran? Why should the veteran care about what we're trying to communicate to them? If there's no answer, then there's no need for us to communicate. But we have to show that we genuinely care about the veterans, and that comes into how we communicate. When I chat with veterans, it's all about, what's the best that we can do for them. So I see people all the time. I communicate with folks all the time on a daily basis, whether that's press, whether that's veterans, whether that's, congressional leadership, folks at the White House, whomever. But one thing that I think that really gets people to care about how you're communicating or what you're communicating is just being genuine. And I bring my genuine self to the job each and every day with my teammates, with my colleagues, with the media, the American public. Again, if you bring that genuineness out, people, I don't know, it's like an infectious thing. People will want to care. People will want to know more and want to follow you and things of that nature. If you just come in as like some robot and you're just kind of checking the block or you're just doing a job, people can see right through that, man. So I think at the end of the day, it's just being your genuine self, unapologetically who you are. And when you could do that and you can deliver on a daily basis and communicate to all your various different stakeholders, I think you're hitting a home run there. But that's the key part, man, being genuine.
So now I have to ask you this one. How did you did the whole 20, right? You did a whole 20?
The mandatory minimum, man, 20 years and 1 day.
You did the whole 20 now. That's a whole lot of years.
Yes.
When you started your transition period, did you know the career field you wanted to be? Did you say, well, listen, I'm going to stay in communications, or did you have any other ideas of other industries that you wanted to play around with? Or what was your transition plan? And when did it start?
Yeah, that's huge to ask that, because everybody's transition plan is a little bit differently. I knew my plan about 24 months out. And to be quite honest with you, I ended up retiring as a Master Sergeant in the United States Army, but I actually attained or was selected for the rank of Sergeant Major, but declined. And because I knew what my plan was, and I was going to follow that plan no matter what, even if they wanted to promote me to the highest enlisted rank in the Army, which would have been an accomplishment, which was one of my goals without questions. But I had this plan in place that I wanted to stick to. And someone once told me that when you got a plan, stick to it. So I developed this plan 24 months out of how I was going to transition. I loved what I did in the world of communications and public affairs. So that was going to be, where I went. But what I needed to do was ensure that I had all everything I needed to again, be competitive in the new workforce that I was going into. So I had my bachelor's degree. I had a master's degree in strategic communications, but I wanted to add another master's degree to my portfolio. So I went out and got another master's degree in organizational leadership and management. And because I believe that you have to understand management, you have to understand people in order to be a great leader. So I think going out there and taking the experience of my 20 years in service, being able to lead soldiers and lead troops, but also taking that education and some of the dynamics that you learn in the school setting and kind of meshing all that together helped me in my transition. Also, I was able to, again, going back to the network piece, along my military career, I was fortunate enough to be able to network with several folks in and outside of uniform. I had friends who were instrumental in the world of athletics. I knew a lot of folks who worked at the PGA Tour back in Sawgrass, back in Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm from, who helped me along the way and helped me transition. I had some folks that I met on the USO tour that I kept in contact with, who are some celebrities. I had some friends who were in uniform, who achieved the highest ranks in uniform and had since departed and were on the civilian side of things, both in government and outside of government, who I could lean on. So I think it was a culmination of all those things. But again, in order for everything to kind of work out, I had to put everything on paper, follow the plan step by step. And even when there were bumps in the road, I still, never wavered from that road and kept going towards my end state, which has led me to where I am today.
So listen, I have to ask you this next question. So you transitioned, you pretty much knew how to build up your portfolio. You had a Rolodex. Hint, hint. You had a Rolodex, had a plan. This is for all my people transitioning in the military right now. Okay, Rolodex plan. I'm not saying you got to do it 2 years out. It'd be nice. Start thinking about it now. Before you became the head honcho as far as press secretary for the Department of Veteran Affairs, you started as a media relations specialist. You started at the ground level. You really started from the bottom. Now you're here.
Yeah.
Tell me, was that your ultimate plan? And at the same time, was it your goal to be in the spot you're in now? How did that happen? Just coming in from a ground level and just working your way up.
Yeah, that's a great question, brother. Because I think a lot of times we let our egos kind of get in the way. And, I might have been, leading, hundreds of troops when I was in the military one day. And the next day, I'm, in my mind, I believe I should be doing the same thing at a Fortune 500 company. But, the real world tells you otherwise. And you have to really, pay your dues just like you did in the military. So I think that you have to go in humble. And I was able to do that during my transition. And I was like, you know what? I want to get my feet wet. I kind of want to learn what this new chapter is all about. Now, I'm not scared to get a little dirty to do it. If I got to start at a certain position to do that, I always knew what my worth was. So I knew that my worth would kind of overvalue where my position was. So I knew that I probably wasn't going to stay in my first couple of positions, forever. So, and as you know, as someone who has served, we were PCSing all the time. So you kind of used to that kind of flow. So with me, I was like, you know what, me going back to the Army staff as a civilian and kind of starting out in the federal sector and kind of learning the ropes, taking a pay cut and all those great things wasn't too much of an issue for me because my ego wasn't in the way. I just wanted to, again, get my feet wet, kind of learn this new chapter. I wanted to have some work-life balance in my life, which was the number one priority for me at the time and still is. And that afforded me that time to do that. But it also afforded me time to hone my skills. It afforded me time to finish my education and go get some other certifications here and there. And again, the whole time I was still putting together a whole nother plan. So while I executed that 24-month plan to help me transition into chapter 2, I still was starting in with my other plan, my plan B, that was going to take me to some other places. So I was just jotting down notes, continuing to take that path and working my plan to get me to where I'm right now, brother. The planning never stops, bro.
The planning never
People
stops.
need to know.
Listen,
You never arrive.
So people, woo, you done said something right there. You say it one more time.
You never arrive, man. We have never arrived. You know what I'm saying? Just when you think you got to that spot and you think it's, the spot for you, or, you're untouchable, there's another spot calling your name, bro. It's just a matter of fact. It's just a matter of time, or a matter of if you're going to, go after that thing. Are you going to call your shot and actually go after what's for you? And there's always something bigger and better out there for you. It's just a matter of if you're going to go take it.
So that's and that's a key piece of this interview. You never know. I love it. You never know when to arrive. Say it again one more time, Terrence.
Hey, man, you have never arrived. We have never.
You have never arrived. You have never arrived.
Trust me, man. Just when you think you've gotten to the top, there's something better, and it's coming. It's coming. You just don't know. You got to be ready when the call comes to grab it.
So this is one thing that I think, within the veteran community, within the military community, we're always taking orders, and we're always just kind of stand by to wait, and it's a hard transition leaving the military, and then you're entering the professional sector,
Right.
and you took the pay cut. Work-life balance, very important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is, when you did plan B and plan C,
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the challenges that you faced? Because definitely financially, it maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you a story. You tell your story.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are kind of scared to take that step.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the challenges, and how did you overcome them during the transition period and getting acclimated to, your new career?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge for me was when you go to some of these organizations in Chapter 2, and you may be starting at a lower level or mid-level position, and you get there and you realize that you're more experienced, more educated, and have better leadership skills than the people who are in charge of you. So that's the biggest challenge. That was the biggest challenge for me. I'll give you an example of that, brother. So I left the office of the chief of public affairs after 7 months, because again, I just knew that, I had capped out in 7 months, man, hard to believe. But I interviewed for the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I'm at right now. And so I got that job in 2017, January of 2017, where I was in the Office of Media Relations at the Department of Veterans Affairs, very same office I'm in right now. And again, went in there, eyes wide open, willing to learn, willing to be a good teammate. That's the key part too. You got to be willing to be a good teammate and put the team first. And that's what I was all about. And but again, when you come in contact, unfortunately, sometimes with some leaders who, you may outshine, or you're like, man, how did this person get into this position? And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna put in my time. I'm gonna put my homework in. I'm gonna devise this plan, because you know what? There's bigger and better for me. Because if these individuals can be in this position and I can do like triple of what they can do as one individual, hey, I need to find that for me. And so long story short, I was a careerist at Department of Veterans Affairs from January 17 to October of 19, when I just came one day to work and I handed in my letter of resignation one day. I woke up one morning and just was like, hey, looked at my wife and told her, hey, today's my last day, or today's going to be when I turn in my letter of resignation. I'll be, 2 weeks out from my last day. And she just looked at me and supported me. And sure enough, that's what I did. I went into the building, handed my letter of resignation in. Quite a few people were surprised. And I moved on to the next thing for me. Crazy thing is full circle. I'm now back at the same job, in the same office, with the same people, doing the same job, but now as the press secretary. So again, man, when opportunity knocks, you got to be ready. And but not just be ready, you got to prepare yourself to be ready. And that's what I did along the way. I was fortunate enough to have some fabulous mentors along the way to help me, guide me, some great networks also. But again, you have to have that plan in place, and you got to be ready to grab that brass ring when it comes. And I was able to do that when when the president called me to come back and lead the Department of Veterans Affairs as the official spokesperson.
So now we're going to get to that phone call, but before we get to the phone call, we got to dive into, the intermediary.
Yeah.
When you became basically the head for media relations with the
Yeah.
VFW.
Yeah.
Now, how did that happen? Okay,
Yeah.
people don't understand. American Legion, VFWs, the national, those are large organizations
Yes.
with hundreds of thousands of members.
Yes.
Different stories.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, just go into it. How'd that happen, Terry?
Yeah, so the VFW is going through an awesome transition. They had just transitioned executive directors. And this executive director who came on board, his name is BJ. And BJ had this vision. And I kid you not, man, he had this vision of a new VFW, a VFW of, we talk all the time, equity, inclusion, diversity, all those things. And that's what he wanted this new VFW to be. And at the time, I'm like everybody else. You hear the war stories about VFW, American Legion, all that kind of stuff. You hear, it's these old, white guys kind of kicking it in a bar, and it's not too many folks that kind of look like me, So initially I was a little hesitant because, again, just of the stories and my experiences with dealing with this particular veteran service organization. But when I had a sit down with BJ Lawrence, and he told me his vision for this new version of the VFW, I had to take a step back. And you know what? I always tell myself that it's easy to complain about change on the sidelines, where I can't do anything about it. I can just complain about anything because I'm on the sideline. But if I'm supposed to be this true agent of change that I want to be, and a person who is of action and wants things to change, I have to get into the game. So I took that to heart and I said, you know what? They only have one director that's a person of color in the VFW out of 200 employees. They only have one. I would have been number 2. So guess what? I raised my hand and said, BJ, I accept the challenge, man. And I joined that team knowing that there was going to be some challenges, some adaptation, both on their side and my side. But if I was going to be able to affect the change, the positive change of this organization, I needed to be on the inside, not on the outside. So I decided, hey, I'm going to take on this task to be their official spokesperson for this particular veteran service organization, the oldest VSO in our nation's history, a huge voice on Capitol Hill, who helps protect the benefits and entitlements for, guys like you and I and girls, out there who have served their country, to make sure that we have the benefits at VA that we deserve, the healthcare at VA that we deserve, all the other things that we can take advantage of because we've, sacrificed so much for our country. And that's what they do on a daily basis. So I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to learn about that too, how the legislative process works, how we work with congressional leadership to protect those benefits and entitlements. And I got to do all those things at the VFW. And I really and truly think that had I not taken that position, I would not have been as well versed as I am. And I would not have gotten that phone call to come to the Department of Veterans Affairs.
So let's go into, crafting the messaging for one of the highest, agencies within the United States. You have millions upon millions of veterans who live in the United States,
yes.
and also outside the United States. We got veterans living in Mexico and in China and Jamaica and other, foreign lands. Shout out to all my Veterans International. What were some of your, I want to say, what were some of your goals coming into that office? What did you, from all the years of serving in the Army, working at the VFW, your prior service as a media relations specialist at the VA, what were some of your key goals that you wanted to achieve once you became the press secretary? And, did they fall in line? And I'm talking about how you're going to pitch what you're going to do to your boss. Because that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. Within public affairs, within media, you have to pitch what you want to do to your boss. What your boss wants to do,
right.
But you got to pitch what you want to do,
Yeah.
Walk me through that process, Terrence.
Yeah, without question. I tell people this all the time. I live by the model AT&T, you know, not the phone service, but AT&T, and that stands for accountability, transparency, and trust. Those are the three things that I wanted to reinstill into that office of public affairs as the press secretary, is reinstill accountability, reinstill trust, and reinstill transparency. The boss, that was an easy sell for him because that's what he's all about, those three things. He used to be the White House chief of staff for President Obama. So, you know, he knows what accountability, trust, and transparency is all about. So again, I needed to do that, but I needed to start at the ground level in order to do that. So what I did was when I came on board, I made it a point that I needed to sit down with every member of the press that covers the VA, all of our national, press folks. I called them up and I had 20-minute chats with them outside of the office, just to chat with them about, hey, what is working? You know, I know the old administration, you know, might have done some things that might be presently working. I don't want to recreate the wheel on that. So tell me what's working that we can keep. But then I also talk to them and say, hey, what are we doing that's not good or not helpful to you? You know, or not being transparent or, you know, not being trustworthy or accountable. They gave me some tips on that, quite a few. And then lastly, I just said, hey, I just wanted to sit down with them to build that personal relationship. Because at the end of the day, this is a personal relationship business. You know, it's a people business. That's what media is all about. That's what public affairs is all about. It's a people-centric business. So
now I had to let the audience digest that, because AT&T, accountability, trust, and say it one more time.
transparency, baby.
Transparency. I don't like to say transparency. You want to know why? Because that scares people, Terrence.
Oh, it
I
does.
can rock with you, accountability and
Oh, it does.
trust.
Yeah, it does.
Transparency
And transparency
it
means
scares folk.
yeah, and
It scares them.
transparency even means when things are not right.
And
You
that's
have
the
to be-
thing. That's
you have
what
to be
people shy
straight
away
up. You
from, and
gotta
they
put
get
it out on the
scared.
street. Yeah.
And I don't want to. I want to stay on good stuff, but I might as well just delve into it. You know, what are some of the tips that you can give to people who are working within the media world, because you do it at a high level, you know, or service members that work in that world of media, when it comes to the challenge of transparency, and when your organization has been maybe accused of some things?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe they've been called out on some things.
Mhm.
You know, as a strategic communications professional, how do you handle the messaging of transparency? I didn't want to even talk about this,
Yeah.
but and because it is a hard question, and it's very
Yeah.
subjective too.
Yeah, no
You know,
doubt.
Terrence, but let's put it out there. Might as
Yeah.
well. No, what's the
Yeah.
harm?
I mean, everybody should understand that bad news never ages well. You know, I mean, just because I may not talk about, you know, a bad situation today doesn't mean it's gonna improve, you know, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now. At the end of the day, you know, we operate unfortunately on news cycles as well. So the quicker that we can, you know, move from one thing and get to another challenge, the best we can get through stuff. Not only that, people are forgiving, man. If you're straight up, people are forgiving if you're straight up with people. You know, you're not trying to sugarcoat stuff, or you're not trying to lie. So at the end of the day, if we can be transparent, admit we've made a mistake, tell the American people, tell our veterans how we're going to correct that mistake, and actually put action behind that, and then we can move to the next thing. That's transparency. Otherwise, if we're just putting out buzzwords and, you know, all these fancy media, you know, words and terminology and stuff like that, people can see through that stuff. So again, it takes action to make transparency actually work. Just because I say, okay, we did this and we promise not to do this again, that doesn't mean transparency. I'm talking about responsible transparency. Responsible transparency means, yes, I admit that we had a fault here. This is what we're doing to correct that fault. And oh, by the way, come out and let me bring you into our space to show you how we've corrected that fault, so you can capture that and see full stop that we actually have put action behind our words, and then we can move on to the next challenge. And then you can understand that, hey, you know what? They do believe in transparency. They do believe in accountability, and they are trustworthy.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. All right, so I'm gonna ask this last question, and then we're gonna, just go into the shameless promotion aspect of the interview, Terrence. Um, where do you go from here? You're gonna be press secretary for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What do you aspire to do? If you want to share it, if you don't, or share
Mhm.
portions of it, because you are a man of plan A, B, C, and D. What do you aspire to do in the future?
Mhm.
And really, pretty much, why? Where do you feel your next journey is? And like I said, if you want to go too deep into it, but what do you feel is your next calling?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people ask me this question quite frequently. And to be quite honest with you, again, as a person who's a planner, and I always have to, and I always have several different plans, I haven't really thought too much about, what may be next and when may be next. I'm so ultra focused on doing such a great job here at the department and supporting my boss and supporting my teammates at the Department of Veterans Affairs that I haven't thought too much into the future. But I will say this: someone's always watching. This is what I would tell people all the time. Someone's always watching you. And I say that because when you get dressed every day and you step foot into whatever work setting that you're in, know that someone's watching your performance. So that's why it's so important that you give your best on a daily basis. And you be that genuine individual, because you know what? That makes a lasting impression on folks. And you never know where folks may end up. You may never know where you're going to end up. But if you give your all each and every day, trust me, it's going to work itself out. You're going to get to where you need to because you put that hard work in. You're passionate about what you do. People recognize that and they're going to reward that eventually down the road. So I think, to be quite honest with you, all of that's going to take care of itself, bro. But I think that whatever does come next, sky's the limits. I'm ready for whatever comes next. And hopefully it's a new challenge. And hopefully I'm able to accomplish that challenge. And we'll be able to circle back and maybe chat about it at a later date. But I think it's going to be exciting times ahead. But whatever that next challenge is, I definitely welcome it.
All right, Terrence, you don't want to tell me that you aspire to be the master, network mogul. All right, it's okay.
Well, if I put it out in the universe,
Um,
if I put it out in the
I
universe,
know, right? The
then I
universe
got
would
to
be
hold
like,
myself
just give him
accountable
his
to it,
own
right?
news station, all his years of experience. Let's do a quick quiz.
Yeah,
I like to do not even a quick quiz.
yeah,
A quick get to know you. I
cool.
want to introduce a little something new to my audience, try to get to know who I'm interviewing on a little more personal level. So I'm
Yeah,
going to ask you questions. We're going to do 5 questions, multiple choice. You got to choose one. All
perfect.
right. And this is called getting to know you. So this is
Cool.
getting to know Terrence. Okay, here we go. And this should be fun. All right. Based upon your uh, experience within public affairs and mass communications, what has been the hardest medium for you to basically control your messaging or your organization's messaging through? A, radio, B, television, C, print.
Wow, that's a good one. Probably TV.
Okay. Number 2, and we're not even going to ask why. This is just for people to be like, really? Yes, really. All right. And this also gives people a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
digging into how you
Yeah,
were in the past and you are now. Favorite food, chicken, beef, fish, or none of the above.
fish.
Okay, so now if y'all want to grab a meeting with Terrence, y'all know y'all got to take him to the fish spot. Okay. Uh if you could choose, and this is not even multiple choice because
Yeah.
I feel it's unfair, as a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, if you could choose one player to put into the Hall of Fame that has been on any team with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who would you put?
I hate to say it, but I'm still gonna roll with my man Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, hey, listen,
That's
he's
my
gonna make
guy.
it
I
one
wish
day,
we would have never got rid of him.
but he's gonna make it one day,
He wanted to get
uh,
paid, and he went out to LA and won a Super Bowl. Say,
he can't be mad about it. All right. favorite childhood movie, because you and I are almost about the same age and everything. And I'm gonna give you, 4 movies, and
Cool.
I think you're gonna choose the one that I think. So we're
Cool.
gonna go with Home Alone, all right, Dennis the Menace, Karate
Okay.
Kid 4, Batman, Michael Keaton.
So Batman with Michael Keenan. Okay. Or Keaton. Dang. I'll go Home Alone. I'll go Home Alone.
Thank you. Yo, nobody is choosing Batman, Michael Keaton over Home Alone. Macaulay Culkin, that's a cult classic. We're going to
Yeah.
leave that alone. And last but not least, okay, if you could have a conversation with one, icon from
Yeah.
history, Martin Luther King, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton. I'm just throwing Alexander Hamilton just for fun, but Martin Luther King, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, or Nelson Mandela. Yeah. Who would you have a meeting with? 60
Man,
minutes.
that's a real tough one. I think if I could have one conversation with one person, I think it would be Rosa Parks, and I would just ask her what made her sit at the front of the bus that day.
You didn't choose from my choices, Terrence. I said you can't
I had to
cheat.
choose from your choices?
You had to choose from my choices. I said that in the beginning.
All right, well, I cheated a little bit.
You did cheat. But who would you choose? Martin Luther King, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, or Nelson Mandela?
Oh, well, I would have
With
to
Rosa
go
Parks.
with.
Rosa Parks would be the plus
in
one.
those choices, I would go with Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
Because
All
I would
right.
literally ask Nelson Mandela, "Hey, man, how difficult was it, when you were, imprisoned, just to kind of stay focused, stay positive, have that forgiveness within your heart, and get out and still continue to be that strong vessel of change and of hope and of love."
Yeah.
Because everybody's not built that way, and clearly he was
that's
built
true.
a different way. So yeah.
So now we get into the shameless plug. Basically, where should people find you? Listen, don't be putting your phone number out here, Terrence. Don't be putting your email. I don't want people in your DMs and then you
Yeah.
blaming me. Greg from the PHIner Life Show put my info out there. Now I got all these. But where can people find you, and then
Yeah.
also put out the VA, website as well?
Yeah, no
So let's
doubt,
get
man.
it.
I'll start off with the VA website. You can find us on va.gov. Trust me, all veterans, all active duty service members, reservists, guardsmen, please visit va.gov. Even if you're not a veteran now, you can read up on what your benefits and entitlements could be, especially for your healthcare and stuff like that. We want you to have that seamless transition from time in DOD to us as VA. So again, delve into it at va.gov just to kind of see what's out there for you. You can find me on pretty much a lot of social media platforms. You can find me on Twitter, and that's at Terrence L. Hayes. You can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Terrence L. Hayes as well. And again, you could probably find me on TikTok. I'm just getting on TikTok, so I don't have too many things on TikTok at this point, but I'm there as Terrence L. Hayes as well. So.
All right, now, like I said, listen, you get the DMs, you put your own information out there. Don't come back but brother Hush, why do I have all these people? You did it, Terrence. All right, everybody, you watch the PHIner Life Show. You know what it's about. That time for me to push that website, www.mbphikings2017.org. That is www.mbphikings2017.org. It's right there. It's right there. Just go to the website, check out what's going on with Mu Beta Phi Military Fraternity Incorporated. You've never heard about Mu Beta Phi Military Fraternity Incorporated? You should just go to the website. It'll change your life. Now, listen, next episode, Terrence, that I do with you, you'll still probably be at the VA Secretary's office, because we're going to talk again. All right. You'll still be there because we've got some teaching to do. Okay. We've given some tips today out where we're going to have to do a master class on communications and strategy for our viewers. All right.
Well, let me say this, man, before you close out. Hey, I want to personally invite you to one of our press conferences into the future, man. That way you can kind of just see, come into the lab and kind of see how we do it, meet the boss and as well. But hey, let me know when you have some availability, man. We'd love to have you come out and kind of be there in person.
I ain't got no people here except the viewers. Y'all heard it. It's going to happen. And maybe we might Facebook Live outside that day. in the streets and just show the people, yeah, you done started something, Terrence. And Terrence is only doing this because he knows I'm Army Public Affairs as well. That's why,
Hey,
because he's like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn, Greg. I saw a little Aqua Northeast
love
in
for my
there.
family, man. Love for my family.
This is that senior NTO, we gonna keep it right there. All right, who? Listen, thank you so much, Terrence, for chilling with us on the PHIner Life Show. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We're gonna do that masterclass on strategy and mass communications. Stay tuned, stay locked. Have a blessed one, everybody. The PHIner Life Show. Peace.